This may be a bit of sensitive question. Leaked internal documents claim that Google has no AI mode, really has no mode. Curious to hear about the Gemini. Do we need to learn code? Nice to meet you, Catherine Chu and Paige Bailey. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I'm Catherine. I am the Director for Research and Innovations at Google, and I've been at the company for almost 20 years. I've been working primarily in life sciences and health up until this last year, but have worked with the BRAIN team, which ultimately is the team that's focused on foundational research and has become part of Google DeepMind at this point for the last year, and early days when we were just getting started with medical brain.
And I'm Paige Bailey. I'm the product lead for PaLM2, and currently I work in DeepMind on our Code AI and Gemini efforts. Code AI is machine learning as applied to the entire process of software development. So helping new programmers learn how to code, helping established software engineers understand how to sort of maintain their systems and taking care of a lot of that work. And then also sort of making code more performant and more secure. So very excited to be here today.
Could you please introduce about PaLM2?
Yes. So PaLM2 is our latest large language model. We released it at I/O and announced it at I/O. And since then, it's been incorporated into over 38 products and features across Alphabet. It's state-of-the-art as a language model, very good at math, at programming, reasoning, multilingual translation, and natural language generation, much better than our previous state-of-the-art large language models like PaLM1 or BERT or some of the others that you might remember. It uses JAX and TPU infrastructure. That's how it was trained. And it's much more efficiently trained than previous large language models. And so it brings together compute optimal scaling, this improved and very large data set mixture, and architectural improvements as well. So we're very excited to have it kind of available in the world and powering all of these experiences across Alphabet.
I saw a paper on PaLM2, but it doesn't have much detail compared to PaLM paper released a year ago. Why did Google decide to close the details recently?
Yes, so contributing to the research ecosystem is deeply embedded within Alphabet's DNA. We publish hundreds of papers each year, and we're the largest contributor to major AI conferences like ICML right now. I think we even had a sort of outstanding paper award won by some of our DeepMind researchers. And we've also built a lot of developer tools and infrastructure that have been open sourced and kind of shared with the world. But as these models get more and more capable, we need to balance open sourcing and publishing with the potential risk for misuse. And being responsible and advancing this technology means more closely scrutinizing how we publish on some of these architectures and approaches. So we believe that getting AI right has to be a collective effort. This is part of the reason why Alphabet, is partnering very closely with the government and with other AI research labs across the world. And we're invested in collaborating as well as sharing the outputs of our research advances, but doing it responsibly.
I saw on CNBC that PaLM2 has 340 billion parameters, which is much less than the previous PaLM's 540 billion parameters. So how were you able to reduce the parameters of the model and achieve better performance?
So last year, we actually had a DeepMind chinchilla paper that showed that the model size and the training data set size should be scaled equally for compute optimal training. Historically, I think that the large language models were undertrained because we've been pushing as an industry to scale up the size of the large models, but we're keeping the amount of training data constant. And so by uniformly increasing the data and model size, we're able to achieve better performance. And this has led to other kinds of benefits as well, which is better and faster inference. And the cost of serving is lower because there's fewer parameters to serve.
OpenAI's GPT-4 is rumored to be a mixture of small models, MOE, the mixture of experts. So I wonder if the PaLM2 is like that, or is it just one big model?
So GPT-4 is rumored to be a mixture of experts model. PaLM2 is actually a family of different sized models that we fondly associate with different animal sizes. So you might have seen the unicorn and the bison and some of the others. And we did this to increase implementation versatility and to allow for better adaptation to different product applications. So you might have smaller models for instances where you need very quick responses. And then for the much larger model, if you really need top of the line performance, but are okay with maybe some of the responses coming back a little bit slower. So this also helps, so the smaller models enable on-device work. So being able to have a model on something like a mobile device. And we also have performant mid-sized models in addition to the much larger model sizes. So many different sizes of PaLM2. User is able to select model sizes based on their use cases. And based on perhaps what their budget might be. So the smaller models are a bit more cost effective. The larger models might cost a bit more. But we sort of endeavor to make sure that our smaller models have really strong price benefit performance. So even though they're smaller, they can get very close to the performance of the full-size models.
I saw the Google recently updated privacy policy to say that they will use the information from the entire public internet for training. But I think there's a lot of copyright issues. OpenAI is currently facing lawsuits for unauthorized use of its training data, and I saw the news about the Google. Google faces the similar issues about the copyright issue. How will Google overcome this issue?
Training data and responsible use of training data is very, very important for doing research on large language models and building large language models. All of the data that we used to train PaLM2 was sort of publicly available with permissive licenses. So as an example, for code that might be hosted online, you might see different license types. So Apache 2.0 and MIT versus something like GPL. And for those non-permissive licenses, we made sure to exclude those data from the training data mixture. This is something that is very, very important to us, and making sure that user data is the privacy is, if the user's data remains their own and is not incorporated into our model training process.
The EU AI Act is preparing a bill to force the disclose of the training data. How will Google deal with this? Will Google be able to disclose the data it uses to the EU?
And so my expectation is that this will be sort of a conversation between governments and Alphabet. And as mentioned before, all of the data that we use to train is publicly available.
Could you please introduce about the MedPalm 2?
Yeah, happy to. MedPalm2 is our PaLM that we fine-tuned for the medical domain. It was the first AI system that went beyond 60%, passing the score of the US medical licensing style questions. So it reached a performance of 67.6% initially. And then our next version, which was PaLM2, achieved the same score as the best exam candidates. So we used the United States medical licensing exam benchmark, and that reached over 85% accuracy, which is on par with like expert test takers. We're making PaLM2 available to a select set of Google Cloud customers for limited testing to explore these real-world use cases, because this is largely just tests that are more in an artificial environment. And we're looking to get feedback and investigate kind of safe and responsible ways of using this technology.
How can PaLM2 contribute to the field of health AI?
So there's a numerous number of opportunities to help. These are language models, so they help with summarization and they help with making things far more understandable in vernacular language. It also helps with being able to make things far more conversational. So this can help with augmenting what doctors do. For example, being able to take interpretations of complex images and interpreting that, or being able to help with summarizing and keeping up with the latest clinical literature. So this is, and even today, doctors deal with a lot of data that comes at them. And so this can help with the summarization and contextualization of that information. That's ways that can help doctors. It can also help with anyone who's doing care delivery to close out communication gaps. So whether that's trying to simplify complex medical jargon into plain English, or even the native language of the patient, this kind of understanding, increased understanding, can help a lot with adherence. And then there's ways that I would expect for us to really accelerate scientific and medical research because of the tool chains that can be built. Everything from accelerating how hypotheses are generated from looking through scientific literature to being able to help with accelerating validation and publication process, which just requires a lot of dealing with complex language and paperwork. So these are all areas that can be explored.
I saw at the Google I/O, the PaLM2 surpasses the expert performance. Can PaLM2 will gradually replace the doctors?
This is a good question. I'll start with that health is very complex, and we have a lot to learn and understand about human health. And so what we do today is only a fraction of what I think we're capable of doing to understand human health. I've also thought a lot about what AI and technology is able to do for people, especially with certain jobs. And I do think back to the fact that computers used to refer to people who computed numbers. They weren't machines. And when we came out with machines that could calculate numbers quickly, it created this whole new industry for programmers who would have to work with those machines. I think that in the medical field, I've seen something similar, which is that they used to have to do individual look through a microscope and look through and calculate kind of the blood cells and do the counts that way. Once we had diagnostic lab tests, they really just elevated to another level to be able to understand, interpret, and analyze that data. And so I think what doctors do today will not only augment what they're capable of, but help shift some of their work to be more holistic about the entirety of the individual's health, as well as consider the population as a whole and the environment.
Let's move on to another topic. This may be a bit of sensitive question. Leaked internal documents claim that the Google has no AI mode. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether Google really has no mode when open source AI model is advancing at such a rapid pace.
So I want to say that this is not an official company strategy document, and that these kinds of documents are honestly very typical at Google. So we have a culture of information sharing, of ideas sharing, robust debate and discussion among engineers. This is one of the reasons why I really love Google, is that everybody is kind of able to have these conversations. But our publishing, it continues at a really rapid clip. So you can see, I think there's a link that we can share for all of the papers that we're publishing just at ICML this year alone. And we're energized by kind of the potential of open source and the new opportunities that it creates, that it unlocks the ability to do research for students and professors in university and also the broader AI community. But I will say that the Google continues to be committed to publishing, sharing research, etc.
I'm curious about your personal opinions about what the winner will be between the open source and the closed model like PaLM2.
I think, in all honesty, we're both winners in the sense that PaLM2, is capable of sort of providing this out-of-the-box solution for people who, perhaps don't want to put in the work of hosting their own models or orchestrating fine-tuning on top of open source models. So it offers a really nice and kind of responsible API-based solution for people who want to be able to incorporate AI into their apps. And then open source models have massive potential. They can sort of help students and professors and people in the community learn how to build large foundation models. And then also, kind of do all of the work to fine tune them for their use cases. So I don't think there will be a winner between these two options. I think all of us just get the benefits in terms of being AI engineers and being able to use these tools.
I've also worked prior to this on mobile solutions, and so I watched the Android OS and Apple platform develop at the same time. And my general feeling about open source is that there's a lot of value to it. It allows for a lot of transparency and community development, and there's good ways to collaborate as a result of it. There's also needs to be sustainable business models that fund even open source solutions, and what Paige said earlier about it depends on where in the stack we think of the product becoming complete, but as you start developing further and further towards specific product use cases and business solutions, I think you're going to typically end up with some hybrid model. And so I think in the short term, it's going to be very exciting because there's a lot of development still and a lot of research to be done. And so I think this is actually great to see the space flourish the way it is. And I think that, a year to 2 years from now, we're going to start seeing some real specialization of these models for particular uses, and those will take different forms in terms of open source and kind of closed models.
I'm also curious to hear about the Gemini. When the Gemini will be released and what are its features?
So Gemini is our next generation foundation model, and it's the result of a strong partnership between the teams that make up our Google DeepMind unit. So this is the first model that Legacy Brain and Legacy DeepMind have trained together. We're very excited about it. It was built from the ground up, or still is being built from the ground up, I should say, to be multimodal, highly efficient at tools use and API integrations. and also to incorporate things like memory and planning. And it's still in training, which means that it's very early, but we're already seeing very impressive multimodal capabilities, not seen in prior models. So once fine-tuned and rigorously tested for safety, then it will be available in various sizes and various capabilities, just like PaLM2. But we are working very hard to get it to you as quickly as we can.
I saw a recent blog post from OpenAI about their strong belief that the AGI, the super intelligence, could arrive this decade, and that they will invest 20% of their computing resources to solve the problem of super intelligence alignment. So when do you personally think AGI, super intelligence, will come? There are things that Google is doing to prepare for super intelligence?
So I think there's no universally accepted notion of AGI, and there hasn't been much consensus as to whether AGI is possible in the next year or decades. It really depends on your definition of what AGI is. If you're to describe it as superhuman intelligence, I've seen in the medical field, there's parts of things that computers can do far better and much superior than humans. So I think it's a question of how you're defining it. At the same time, I think there's things that are uniquely human, and there's a question of if what people are referring to is mimicking that. But with this kind of nascent technology, we want to explore the potential consequences, both positive and negative, and where it intersects with human experiences. And for us, there is really important that there's an ethical, strong sense of what the purpose of the technology is being used for. And we have a set of principles around that we adhere to very closely. So we want and believe that AI has tremendous potential to benefit society. And in that way, we would like to help use AI technologies to get there. And one of the areas we've seen, the superhuman capabilities really shine is in these translations that are capable of happening in hundreds of languages. And every time I travel, I really appreciate the fact that that's there. But I'm going to say that Marie's ability here is kind of also kind of irreplaceable for me, at least as an experience. So I'm going to say it comes down to definition. Paige, do you want to add something?
I think Kat got it. Kat's answer was perfect, or at least it was +1 to everything that Kat said. I think that predicting the arrival of true AGI is very hard to do, especially because we don't have a definition for what that actually means. And that often these large generative models can share outputs that look and feel or resemble the kinds of outputs that you might see from another person, but they're still very, very far from human-like intelligence. And so there's incredible potential, but I think we need to do a lot of work in this space before we would ever, realize something like AGI. And we also should be mindful to do it responsibly, to do it analyzing the potential risks, and to make sure that we have governance processes in place for the implementation.
Bard is already good at coding, and I think AI will get better at coding, and the low code or no code will become more common. So do we need to learn to code in this situation?
That is a great question, and it is very near to my heart. I care a lot about programming education. And recently, we've started to see sort of very interesting capabilities. In Bard, we introduced multimodal support. So you can input a sketch of a website, just a drawing of a website, and it will generate the code for you to create that website, which feels like magic. However, a lot of the time, you still need to be able to modify the code to get it to be able to do precisely what you need it to do. So I still think that there is a benefit in learning how to program. Just think of these tools as ways to accelerate the process of building software and make it easier to maintain that software over time. I also think that it's very, very useful to learn how to program, and that it teaches you how to think about logic and in a step-by-step way. And this is helpful not just for building software, but also even for things like, strangely, like cooking or putting together furniture or any of these other things that are kind of step-by-step processes that you might have to do each day, or math. So I still think programming is a useful thing to teach. It's something that I very much enjoy doing, so I would be very sad if I could not do it. And it helps everyone become kind of a better thinker and a more effective communicator, I think, in a step-by-step way.
I think we need different learning methods. How should the students who dream of becoming developers should study now at this situation? What capabilities will become more important in future?
Yes. So I think we are at a really wonderful time where we have these powerful tools to help make it easier to make our ideas reality, and to make it easier to maintain the systems that we create. But I also think that it's going to become even more important that we have empathy for the people that we are building for, as well as we care a lot about product and about communication. So I think a lot of learning and a lot of becoming an expert is related to teaching others and to being able to communicate what you learn. And I think your channel inspires a lot of sort of people who want to become software developers. I have heard very excellent things about it from our Google developer experts, and I've also seen several episodes myself. So the skill sets that are going to become very, very important aren't necessarily so much, I think, can you program something super quick all by yourself, or can you get the syntax or the APIs right every single time? I think it's going to be, we can rely on powerful tools to help with those things. And then the much more important piece is, how well can you communicate your ideas? How well can you make sure that you're actually building the right thing for people, and that you're actually, sort of wanting to make sure that you kind of improve whatever you've built over time.
I think watcher of this interview and many people will dream of joining Google. What competencies do you think are the most important to become a developer?
I'll say that we have all kinds of developers at Google, and one of the kind of key things is just real-world development. So just actually getting your hands into the code, building something that you think you're interested in or passionate about. That's first and foremost, just actually doing it yourself. And there's so many tools and channels where people are helping to educate about how to build those things. that goes into kind of the second piece here, which is that's really important to us, that you're a team player and that you're able to engage with the broader community about what you're building. So if you build code that no one else can read, that's not something that we can really manage inside of Google. We really have a huge community of engagement across our developers. And so that's one of the areas that makes people very successful. And then maybe the last thing is just staying apprised of what is happening, having that passion to really continuously learn, because the tech field never stays still. And as you can see, it's always evolving. And so having that strong interest to keep learning about what is the next evolution of what we can do with our technology and the kind of programming languages and their power, I think will continue to shift over the next few years in very powerful ways. And so that passion is going to keep you very relevant and keep you very much at the forefront of what I think Google looks for in a developer.
Thank you. There have been many sensitive or difficult questions to answer, but thank you very much for your great answer.
Thank you for this wonderful interview and very good question.
Thank you very much.
It's a lot